Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again. I am here this Saturday to do a very fun video. Wink wink. I am here to yet again make another Breaking Bad Better Call Saul video. And honestly, I like making the videos because they're a little bit easier. I don't have to watch anything new now, but they're a little bit of a pain because I could probably talk for hours and hours about this stuff, and it's probably really bad. I don't know. For some reason, I could just go on and on and on because when I get really invested in a show or a movie series, I have a lot to say. And I think that a lot of people nowadays, they'll just say, yeah, that was good, yeah, that was bad, and they don't really have much more. I am the exact opposite. I just have trillions and trillions of irrelevant things to say about everything, to the point of where, that's why I really had to start a YouTube channel, was just to, get all of my thoughts out about everything. Because I was sick of just, the only person I had to talk to about it to was Safi. And Safi doesn't like that. She gets really mad, and she's like, who cares, Marco? Okay, it's done. It was good, it was bad, let's just forget about it. And, I'm just like, Safi, people got paid money to do this, right? That we paid money to watch this. So it's a pretty big deal. It's not just like a little thing that you just throw away. Especially this series, which was a series that I started watching it when I was still in school, and I really loved the show, and it came after Breaking Bad, being invested in that show for all those years. And so it's a pretty big deal that this show turned out terrible, and that it got rushed to an end, and that the creators of it completely destroyed the show because they had these little agendas about the midlife crisis of Vince Gilligan and his whole temper tantrum about people are mean to Skyler, and I don't like Walter anymore. He literally changed the whole show just to suit his own agendas. And they really all did, so that they could get Kim and Emmy. That's what the whole series became about, Better Call Saul. So, if you guys don't know, if you can't tell, I am here to rank every Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, El Camino character from worst to best. I do have a big number of characters who are just completely forgettable, and I put them all at the bottom. These are characters that, I recognize a couple of them, but they're really not very interesting. They're just kind of there. They're not really, there's not much to say about them except for, okay, that's what I have to say about them. Now, here is the F tier. There are 82 characters I'm going to talk about here. So get ready for 82 things that I have to say or more. Number 82, the worst of the worst, is Kim Wexler. And no, that is not a joke at all. Kim Wexler she started off what could have been a very potentially good character. She started off very likable, very complimentary to Jimmy, and she started off as someone who, I'd watch more episodes with her. I would watch her with Jimmy more. Sure. But then the whole show became about her, and the whole show became about, we have to write this contrived story with her where she gets in a bad situation so that she can act a certain way. She gets in a happy situation so that she can act a certain way. And, she goes on a bus and she cries and she's really sad so that she can act sad. and so that she can cover all the ranges of emotions, because the only thing that they cared about was that the actress would get an Emmy. That's all they cared about with this character. They didn't care about developing her. They didn't care about making her a great character. They just cared about, when's Rhea Seehorn gonna get an Emmy? And guess what? She'll never get an Emmy for anything else, so I hope she does get an Emmy for this show. Because her character was trash, and she was such a bitch to Jimmy, her husband, her boyfriend, her soulmate. She was such a terrible person to him. She was evil. She is evil and selfish. She was really cold and like a multi-personality disorder. Like, she was just the fucking worst. She was a cancerous, toxic person. She was the Walter White of Better Call Saul. The only difference is that Walter White was actually likable. Kim Wexler was just a cringeworthy fan service mystery box Mary Sue biatch. And by the end of the show, Jimmy throws his whole life away just for her, so that, he can get her back and he can get her approval. And, she just turned into one of the worst characters in television show history, one of the worst love interests in television show history. People like this exist. The only differences with this character is that she had so much plot armor because the fanboys would have lost their shit and had temper tantrums like I did when I watched the shitty show, if they had killed her or gotten her in any sort of danger whatsoever. And it got so bad that she literally just got to walk off the show. She just walks off the show while Bob Odenkirk has his heart attack, and then she goes off and has sex with this random guy and has like debates about mayonnaise and shit, like, because she suffers a fate worse than death. Like, God, Kim sucks. She just sucks. Like, 1 minute she's having, like, remember that weird scene in the fucking model room where she's looking at the models in season 4 and she's just staring into them and they're playing this dark music like she's thinking about committing a murder or something? Like, that was creepy. And then those scenes where she does these U-turns and just these very, very odd behavior, character choices, and they're really just all to fit with, like, okay, let's give her something interesting, let's give her something else interesting, without actually developing it into something that makes sense. And the worst part was that what she did to Howard. Because everyone just blames Jimmy for what happened to Howard. I blame Kim. She's the one who wanted to destroy Howard. She's the one who didn't give a fuck about Howard. Jimmy was just jealous of Howard, and so he was an accomplice to Kim. And so I just can't stand the way that Kim was the true aggressor in this situation, and all people do is talk about talk about Jimmy, and how Jimmy bad, Chuck right, Jimmy bad, Chuck right. And I just can't stand it. I hate her character with a burning fucking passion. I would write an entire essay about every single minute of every single episode about Kim's character and how trash she turned out to be. That's how much I despise this trash fucking character. I hate the fact that the writers took this, what could have been a great character, and they ruined her. And they ruined everything with this show. They just ruined everything, and it pisses me off. Next up, number 81 is Jeff the Cab Driver. Yeah, remember in season 4 and season 5 when we were all so excited about Jeff the Cab Driver? Ooh, is he a serial killer? Is he some sort of a criminal? Does he work for Kim? Does he work for someone else? Like, who is he? Who is this fucking creepy guy going up to Gene, and saying, come on, man, say it. Say Better Call Saul. Come on, just say it louder. You'll do better next time, don't worry. Like, who is this creepy ass fucking guy? Oh, Bart fucking Simpson, 45-year-old Bart Simpson with his mother Marion, his sweet old mother Marion. Bart Simpson, overgrown Bart Simpson with his little weaky wimpy voice, his little weak and pathetic character actions, just randomly running into a car at one point. I mean, this character's trash. This character just sucks so badly. You could clearly tell that they completely rewrote the character and they fired the original Jeff actor because they had their little agenda of making Jimmy look bad so that they could uplift Kim. So, number 80 and number 79 are Jesse's parents. Jesse's parents are some of the worst human beings on earth. They are exactly why Jesse became Jesse. You know, you really can't just, I mean, they were the Chuck of Breaking Bad. I mean, they were really, really evil. And the way that they treated their own son was just horrible, cold. They were sociopathic. They did not ever love Jesse. They did not ever love the other kid either, the brother, the boring brother that they had for like one episode. These are horrible monster people, and they are so bad that just... Ugh. It sucks that Jeff and Kim are worse, though, because I would have much rather have been happier with them being at the bottom of the list than the cab driver and Kim, two characters who could have been great. Number 78 is Cheryl Hamlin. This is another trash character from the trash final season of Better Simp Kim, where you have Howard's wife. Wow, we just learned in one episode before Howard dies, Howard had a wife. Wow, are you sympathetic yet to Howard's character? Do you feel anything for his character? Because we just showed one little tiny scene of his wife in this one episode in the final season? Wow. And then what happens? She's a cold, sociopathic biatch like Kim. And then Howie Ward dies. So all of a sudden she feels sad about it. Like, her character is just so... She's another bad person. And then what happens when Howie Ward dies is she's like, oh, I'm gonna just sue people right and left because they told me the truth. Like, she is the worst. Like, she is just horrible. I will say that she is better than Kim, though, because it really does seem like maybe she regrets her actions a little bit. But for that little bit that we saw of her, I really thought she was another sociopathic, cold human being. And I can't stand people like that. You know, there's tons of people like that for real. And Cheryl, just because she's sad in the second half, that doesn't do anything for what she did to her husband all those years off screen when they could have shown that as well. So her character, the only thing that I could say positive about her is that she's hot. She's got an Audrey Hepburn hairdo. And I love Audrey Hepburn's hair, and I love Audrey Hepburn, and so that's the only nice thing I have to say about her. 77 is Jane. Yeah, I can already hear, no, Marco, you're just joking. No. Number 77 is Jane. Jane is another disaster. Jane. You know, it was sad when she, no, it wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it was sad when she died. I mean, she was another huge biatch. She, treated Jesse like, you know, like she was really a toxic person. She was another damaged, toxic person, just like Kim, just like Cheryl, just like Jesse's parents. And she was another person who was helping Jesse to go down a bad path. And the way that... Oh, shit, there's a raccoon eating cat food. Wow. I just look, now it's looking right at me too. Shit. So, Jane, I never really liked her, just because it's the actress Kristen Ritter. That has nothing to do with the character. Like, trust me, guys, I've known Janes in real life. They're really disasters. Like, I knew one really recently, and she's just like a human disaster. Like, she would go on her social media and she'd like ask for gas money and then exchange nudes while she's in a relationship. Like, these types of people, they're not good people, and it's not their fault. It's just that, their parents made them that way. And in this case, Jane was just too far gone, and I really don't care that she died at all. Like, I mean, it was sad to happen because of what happened after, because of the dad killing tons of people and then killing himself. That was really sad. But Jane herself, like, who cares? Like, just because it's Kristen Ritter, that doesn't mean shit. Like, I don't care if Bryan Cranston played me in a movie. Like, I mean, not me, like someone I hate. Like, I don't care if, oh no, a lot of people are going to be like, Marco, that was a Freudian slip. You hate yourself. No, just, it's going to be a long video. So I slip up with these long videos, and it always comes off wrong sometimes. Ugh, see, there's another thing that sounded weird. I don't care if Bryan Cranston, though, I don't care if he played somebody who I hate in my life. I'm still going to hate that person, because that's the character. I'll say, like, yeah, I loved Bryan Cranston's performance. I loved Kristen Ritter's performance as Jane, but her character is garbage, and she was a toxic person. Number 76 is Walter Jr. Now we're in the D category. Walter Jr., he's a living, walking meme. And unfortunately, they never really let him go beyond being a living, walking meme. Hardly at all. Over the course of the series, I can't really count more than a handful of times that I actually kind of thought he had some interesting stuff to do. Like, there's that part where Walter forces him to keep on drinking tequila, and then he pukes, and that was pretty dark, and I kind of liked that. I like the stuff with him doing the charity for his dad. That was pretty sad and pretty good, but that was also kind of a meme. And then I like the final phone call between him and his dad, because, we never really got to see him and his dad have like an honest relationship, because his dad was a two-face and he kept him in the dark for that long period of time. But he's too goofy, and he's too much of a joke. And I gotta be honest, like, looking back on the show, like, sure, I was invested with Walter Jr. a little bit while the show went on. But now, looking back on Breaking Bad, like, I just laugh my ass off at Walter Jr. Like, fucking, there's this YouTuber who pretends to be Walter Jr. while he plays video games. And, like, that's what I think of when I think of Walter Jr. Like, I don't think of Walter Jr. as some sort of a legendary character. Like, he's just kind of a joke. And it's too bad, because he's another character where maybe if they had more episodes, they could have given him more character development. They could have given him more good storylines, besides, like, changing his name to Flynn and going to his friend's house sometimes. Like, he wasn't really that great of a character. 75 is Suzanne Erickson, the district attorney. She was a huge biatch, and somebody brought up in the comment section, what really cemented this for me was not only her treatment of Huel, but in the finale, the way that she calls Kim and treats Kim like this amazing person, and talks about Jimmy like he's Hitler or something. Like, I just was like, ugh, this she's she's not good either. She's not good. She is weird. She's biased towards Kim, like the writers. And see, that's how you could tell that the writers were just implementing their bias. Because just think about how everyone and their brother shunned Jimmy when they found out he was representing Lalo, aka Jorge de Guzman. And just think about how it's like, okay, bye-bye, let's cancel him. But then when they find out that Kim destroyed Howard, she did all this other evil shit too because she got turned on by it. That was another thing too. Kim's cringeworthy impressions, the finger guns, like just, there's like a never-ending list of cringeworthy Kim in Better Call Saul. And it was just so strange that like Suzanne, this lawful individual, this person who just cares so much about the law and my police and my law and my justice, that same person doesn't care about what Kim did. And that's how you can tell the writers were really the characters, not the characters themselves. Okay, wait. 74 is Stacey Ehrmantraut. You know what? I'm going to stop doing the numbers because whatever. Like, there's a lot of people to talk about. And I don't want to slow the video down. Stacey Ehrmantraut, she started off as really likable in season 1. You know, she's really hot too. She's really, really likable. And obviously she's Kaylee's mom, and she's Maddie's ex-husband because Maddie's dead. Poor Maddie. But over the course of the seasons, literally all she does is beg Mike to come, like, Mike! Like, the show literally should have been called Better Call Mike, because all Stacey did was call Mike and say, Mike, I'm so worried. I just heard some shots in my neighborhood. Mike, I saw these holes on my house. They're bullet holes. Mike, can you spot me a 20? Because I want to buy my dinglings and ho-hos this week. Mike! And Mike was like, I mean, she drove Mike to break bad. Like, that's how bad Stacey is. Like, I don't care that she's Maddie's widow or whatever. Like, she's terrible. And like the point of where Mike is like, okay, just I'll do whatever you want, just let me sleep. Like, it was so terrible. Like, this pressure that you felt with him and his character, you know, all this pressure that she put him under, it was horrible. And then what happens after that? Like, she gets mad at him because he tells the truth about a lying idiot at the therapy group thing, and that's it. Like, that's literally it. Oh yeah. And then she doesn't want him to babysit Kaylee anymore. Like, so yeah, I don't like this character. She's trash. Next up is Werner Ziegler, the character who, Werner died. It was very sad, but not it was sad because he was so stupid. He was such a stupid character. His character was, it was so predictable, the way that, you know, oh, of course, maybe Kai is going to do something bad, and Kai is going to become the villain, and Mike is going to have to deal with Kai. And then, oh no, of course, it's the quiet one. It's the one who you'd least expect. You know, wow, that's such an amazing writing right there. That's amazing. An amazing script. 10 out of 10. You know, that this character, he was a very good actor, obviously. I'm not talking about the acting for most of these people. I am just talking about the characters. And this Werner character, he was an idiot. And it's like, dude, just get over it. Like, get the work done and go home. Like, seriously, like, is your wife that important that you have to die because you wanted to see her for 2 seconds? Like, it's just so weird. It's so, he's such a, ugh. Like, looking back and watching season 4 again, all I could think was, man, he's just stupid. Like, Werner is just a stupid idiot. Okay? That is the end of the D's. Now we are on to the C's. Next up is the cameraman. Ugh. This guy has been around ever since season 1. He is a self-insert of Peter Gould. He looks a lot like Peter Gould kind of looks like. And he is just the most stereotypical, one-dimensional, nerdy camera guy who really loves his equipment and all that. He's just so boring and so one-dimensional. They never gave him any character development ever. Next up is, what was that guy's name? The eyebrow guy? Oh yeah, Bogdan. He, another stereotypical one-note character. Next up is the vet, and this is the vet from the Mexican vet, not the one from Better Call Saul original. He was a good character, he did his purpose for the plot, but he was another character who never really got any character development or anything. Next up is the Say My Name guy. The guy who's like, "You're Heisenberg." And then he's like, "You're goddamn right." Like, that's all I remember about his character. Like, just like a couple of lines with him. And then what ended up happening with him? Didn't he and his crew, didn't they get murdered by the Nazis and Lydia? Like, yeah, he was garbage. And next up we have the principal, the sexy principal. It was unfortunate because we really didn't get that many characters in Walter's school who sort of explained to us, like, the environment of, like, we didn't get enough characters like the principal who really showed, like, how much of a prison Walter was in working in this school. And to be honest, like, they could have done so much with, like, showing flashbacks with Jesse in school and showing other terrible teachers. And maybe, to be honest, what I think could have been cool is if you had a teacher's lounge lunch session and you show all the teachers talking about Jesse and they're all bad-mouthing him, and, like, including Walter, to sort of show, like, the sort of environment that Walter was in, like how toxic it was and everything. I think that was a missed opportunity. And the principal character, she was just another kind of boring, stale character. Hey! Why the fuck isn't Hugo on this list? This fucking dipshit who made this tier maker list, he didn't even put Hugo on the list. What the fuck? Why isn't Hugo on the list? Oh, that's irritating. Hugo, the janitor, he was a great character in the school that we got to know. He would be like in the B or A category. But this principal, she was nothing. Next up is, what's that guy's name? Gonzo or Combo, the big guy with the earrings and the bald head. He was, just there. Like, he was just like, okay, he's one of Jesse's friends. He's fine. He's just kind of there. In real life he would probably be a really shitty person to encounter. He just doesn't come across as like a likable character. The only time where I ended up really liking him is when he gets killed. Like, when he gets killed in season 3 and then they have to avenge him. That's the only time I even cared about his character. Next up is the doctor from Better Call Saul, the hospital. The one who wants Chuck to be committed. Say what you will, she had logic, and Jimmy should have taken her advice. She was very smart, but she was just an average one-note character. And I don't know why the hell she's on here and Hugo isn't. That's another thing. Next up is Rich Schweikert. He is another character who was just flat, one-dimensional, didn't really ever have any development. He was just there. He was this kind of stuck-up rich guy, and he's a great actor. You know, I saw him in this movie that I loved this year. I give it a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. It was called The Dream Team, and he played this really goofy, wacky psychiatrist, and he did a really good job in that movie, and it's unfortunate that they wasted this actor. And he was also on Monk season 1, and he did a great job in that too, and they really wasted him. Next up is Juan Bolsa. You know, I don't even know why I know Bolsa's name. Like, he is just there. He is the guy, like, every time he's on, it's just like, oh yeah, there's that guy. Like, he's really just uninteresting and boring. Definitely reminiscent of, like, old movie characters, like crime characters, who would just be, like, there in the background. Next up is Crazy 8. You know, this is a character who started off pretty damn good, but in Better Call Saul, he literally became the cameo character. Like, every time they needed a cheap cameo to jangle the keys to the fanboys, they would just bring in Crazy 8 for a quick little thing. Next up is, Omar. Omar from season 2 of Better Call Saul. You know, this guy, I think he's pretty underrated. Like, he was Francesca if Francesca didn't turn into a biatch to Jimmy. Like, he is just the ultimate Chad, the ultimate suave, cool assistant that you could have. Jimmy's like, I want a Coca-Cola desk. And he's like, okay, got it, Jimmy. And he's got like a thumbs up, and he's like smiley. You know, he just seems like such a cool assistant. And so I like him. But still very flat, one-dimensional character. Next up is Elliot. God, Elliot. Oh my God. Guys, if you don't like Elliot in this show... Oh wait, was that him? No, I don't... Was it? No, maybe... Was it him? There was... It might have been him. He might have also been Monk. They had this episode in Monk about nudists. And, oh God, he's even worse than Monk. Oh... But I don't know if it's him or this other guy that I'm mistaking him for. But his character, he was a very antagonistic character to Walter, and he really could have provided much more if they had developed him more in the show. And I really think he is an underrated character because of how, I mean, he stole Walter's first love away from him. And then he stole his company from him. And, you know, he's a very important character to Walt's journey that we never really got to see much about. And so I would say he is an underrated character. Next up is the head of Jesse's therapy group, the glasses guy. This guy didn't really have much. You know, he was a pretty good character. He had a good little monologue where didn't he talk about like killing his daughter or killing his dog or something? I don't know. He was a really good character for the little time that he had on. I really like the actor, though I'm pretty biased towards him. He was on Bates Motel season 1, and he played probably one of my favorite villains ever. And literally all he did was walk around asking, "Did you hide it? Where did you hide it? Where'd you hide it?" And he would ask that over and over and over and over again to Norman and Norma. And it was so hilarious because they didn't have any idea what he was talking about. And so he was such a fantastic villain. Like, he was so good. It's too bad he didn't have more of a role in Better Call Saul. He didn't have any role in Better Call Saul. Next up is Ted. Ted was just meh. I mean, he was kind of likable. I mean, he did a good job acting, but Next up is Daniel Price Warmald. This guy, he was hilarious. He was very, very funny. And he was interesting because he led Mike into giving the speech about there's good criminals and bad criminals. However, he never really had much development. He pretty much always stayed as a comedic character, and pretty much the only use that he ended up having was giving Nacho the drugs to take out Hector. Next up is Francesca. Now, I really loved Francesca in Better Call Saul when Jimmy first picked her out, and it seemed like, wow, Jimmy and her actually work really, really well together. I can't wait to see how their relationship gets astray, and how over the years it gets worse and worse and worse. I can't wait to see all that. I can't wait to see, like, oh, there was that one client who tried to kill Francesca after they closed, or maybe he followed her home or something. Like, I really wanted to see stuff like that happen, but of course they couldn't overstay their welcome. So instead, she just turned into another one-dimensional character who just hates Jimmy for no reason. Next up is Werner's wife. She was nice. Next up was Irene Landry. She was nice. Next up was the guy from the copy shop. Now this guy, I think that this guy is underrated because I don't know, they're just something about him seemed almost like he was a younger Jimmy. Like the way that he helped out Jimmy, and that he was just all about getting the money. Like, for some reason, he sticks out to me as, like, you know, he did do a good job in the little time he had, and it's too bad that they didn't have more with him, or, you know, just have more characters like him who were like Jimmy. You know, he was very much like a Jimmy in the copy shop. Next up is Wendy. She was another character like Crazy 8 who just became the cameo character, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that she was a great character in Breaking Bad, so there's that. Next up is Tyrus. Now, Tyrus, for some reason, I really like Tyrus. I think he's cool. Like, he just has he's a very good enforcer character to me. Like, even though he's not much of a character at all, for some reason he has a presence, and I think that he really, I love the interactions between him and Walter, especially when Walter ends up shooting him in season 4. Next up is Paige. Now, Paige is, oh my god, yum, 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 yum. Paige is, she's a marshmallow queen. But the thing is that her character, and Kevin's up next, their characters never really had much growth, even though they were these main characters who Kim, you know, they were Kim's biggest client, and they were just kind of corporate people, you know, very stereotypical. Next up is Victor. I think his name is Victor, you know, the Gus's worker who he kills with a box cutter. Not really for Better Call Saul, but for Breaking Bad. You know, that part where he starts to cook and he's like, you know, I've watched you guys cook 1,000,000 times. I'm going to do it from now on. And he starts cooking. Like, I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes from Breaking Bad, because even though he was just really this silent henchman, it was so funny watching him almost like overstay his welcome with Gus. And so he was very, very memorable. And you can definitely tell that he was memorable because he got cast as the main villain in the first season of Dark Winds. And so I really thought he was really good. Next up is the gun dealer from Better Call Saul. You know, for some reason, this is another guy like Tyrus, who just has a boss presence. Like, he just comes on, and you feel like you know him, even though you don't know him. So I really liked him. Next up is Howard. Howie Ward. He is one of the most laughable characters in the show's history. He's another character where they really did a disservice to the actor, because Patrick, the actor who played Howard, he's incredible. And he really showed how good of an actor he was in Plan and Execution, which is basically the only episode where he ever gets to act in the whole series. And so there's that. Other than that, this was a character that he started off where he had a really good arc, where he had this arc where he really liked Jimmy, but he was Chuck's bitch, and he eventually had to stand up to Chuck, and it cost him everything, because then Chuck killed himself, and it was a whole big deal. But after that, Howard really didn't even need to be on the show. He was just totally unnecessary. They didn't do anything with him at all, except for have these stupid little stories. He was basically there so that they could pull him out of the sandbox. Pull him and put him into the sandbox when they needed another new toy to play with in season 6, the shitty final season. So it's sad, because in that Plan and Execution, you realize how good of a character he could have been if they had given him more story, and they could have given him more screen time instead of just making the show all about Kim. Next up is Uncle Jack. This is probably one of the weakest villains of the show's history. He doesn't really have much of a character at all, except for the fact that he's a Nazi and he's evil. That's pretty much it. There really isn't much to his character at all. He is very real, and I definitely remembered, for some reason, he was very entertaining to watch. Him and his crew, his little gang of pirates, his Nazi pirates, but he never really had much of a character to me. He never really had much to him, except for the fact that he's a Nazi. That's it. That's really it. Up next is Nacho. Now, Nacho Libre. Nacho, he started off as a villain. A very creepy, sinister villain. And they made a change. They turned him into a sympathetic hero. And it worked. But then, as soon as Gus found out what he did, and I really loved Nacho. I would have put him in the A tier if it wasn't for what happened in season 4. What happens is he becomes Gus's slave, and they literally spin their wheels with him for 3 seasons. And so then in season 6, he just kills himself, and that's it, for no reason. And so it's just complete trash. What a complete waste of a great actor. What a complete trash character in Nacho. Up next is Lalo. Now, Lalo is another wasted character. This was a character who came on and they didn't know what to do with him. He was the smiley guy. He would kill you with a smile. He would do a lot of investigating, but he really didn't have much of a character. And they never really gave him much more, to be honest. He had a couple of great moments. I would say one of the best moments was when he went to Werner's wife's house and he did everything he could in his power not to kill her and her dog. It was oh wow, this character, he's actually not as evil as other characters. The other criminals on the show, that they just would have killed them in 2 seconds and just walked off and left. But for some reason, Lalo did not want to do that. And there's just something really cool about that they never really followed through on with his character. Because then they were oh no, Lalo's overstaying his welcome. So they dumped him down, and then they killed him in a really stupid way. At the top of the C category is Gomez. Gomez is a pretty average character. He never really had much emotional depth to him. He never really had any good moments like Jesse or Walter or Jimmy. He was a great partner to Hank, but then again, Hank was a great side character to Walter. So Gomez is the side character of a side character. And so he's just pretty flat and one note. However, he was solid in his averageness. He was a solid partner to Hank. And now we are in the B category. Next up is, and now I do think I should have put this guy maybe in the C category, but I kind of think that Bs are like the people who I know are Cs, but I'm personally biased towards them, or I just think they're slightly above C's. So don't take this like I know you're going to take it, because I'm pretty mad that I put this person this high. It was an accident. I should not have put this person this high. Next up is the big guy from Better Call Saul, Pimento, and then Pinata. I literally... I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I swear, I apologize. This guy should be all the way down at the bottom of the C's. I am so sorry. That is a complete error on my part. That is trash. I don't know why the fuck I put him there. And next up is Erin, the nightmare from hell. The woman who wanted to follow Jimmy into the bathroom. The one who Jimmy should have filed a sexual harassment claim towards. This character was just a complete nightmare. And she was a great character, and her purpose was totally fulfilled. However, she never really got much more after season 3. Or after season 2, I would say, because in season 3, she helps Jimmy in the finale pull off the scheme where he helps the old people not decide to get the money yet from Sandpiper. But I don't know, like she just kind of flattens out after that, and she never really, because they don't need to show her, so she never really has more to her. She's just that really, really nightmarish person from Davis and Maine. Take another drink. Next up is Ernesto. Now, Ernesto, I admit, he is a guilty pleasure character of mine. I know that he's a C-tier character, but for some reason, he was such a good friend to Jimmy, and he was another character who just randomly dropped off the show. And every time Chuck would say, Ernesto, I would laugh. It was so funny. Ernesto, I want to try soy milk. Ernesto, turn off that tape recorder. Ernesto, I wanted Fuji apples, not Red Delicious. Ernesto's just really funny. He's like a funny background character, and I like him. Next up is Craig Kettleman. This guy, he is almost as much of a simp as Jimmy McGill turned out to be in season 6. However, I gotta be honest, I would simp my ass off to be with Betsy Kettleman. I don't blame Craig Kettleman in the slightest. I thought he was a solid character. I thought he was a great, consistent character. And although he never really had much, quote-unquote, development, he was always a solid character. And they never just dropped him off the show like he just didn't exist after he was after he was used. Next up is Gretchen. Now, Gretchen, I think, is probably one of the most underrated characters in Breaking Bad history. She was Walter's first love, and you guys know, I don't know if you know or not, I don't know if you know what it's like to lose your first love and to lose someone who was so, she really could have been Walter's wife, and she could have been with him forever, and it could have been a really happy ending for him, but he screwed it up, and then she screwed it up even more, and it just was a big, sad story with that, and she is really the heart of Walter White. Like, I think Skyler, he ended up loving Skyler by the end of the series, like, even more than Gretchen, but I really think that Gretchen is at the heart of his character. So next up is Betsy Kettleman. Oh my fucking god. Betsy Kettleman, she is a goddess, she is a babe, she is a boss girl, and I would simp the living daylights just for Betsy Kettleman. And she was a great character. She did a perfect job as the character. You know, when everybody talked about this character when the show first came out, all they did was talk about her in Fargo, and I gotta admit, like, I can't even remember what she did in Fargo. Like, she was so forgettable in Fargo Season 1 in comparison to Betsy Kettleman. Like, so, I gotta say that, too. Like, she should be known as Betsy Kettleman, not the Fargo woman. Next up is the head of the nail salon. This character, I can't remember her name. I just had a blank. Her character was very supportive of Jimmy over the years, pretty much. And I thought she was pretty cool. And she was a pretty nice character, and I really loved all the stuff with her. It's too bad that she didn't really get any development in the later seasons of Better Simp Kim. And it's too bad she just dropped off the show at one point. Next up is Tuco. Tuco he is a really good character. He's a really good villain, especially in Breaking Bad and in the first season or two of Better Call Saul. After that, to me, he's just kind of like a meme, and he's kind of like a cameo character after that happens in Better Call Saul. Like, so he's a bit cheapened for me after what they did with him in Better Call Saul. Next up is Bill from Better Call Saul seasons 1 through 6. I really love this character because every single season we would see him and Jimmy interact, and we would see like a little thing between them. And so I really like seeing him over the 6 seasons. I like seeing them interact. He was a strong character who could have been even stronger if they had given him any development whatsoever. Next up is Jane's dad. Now, this is probably another one who should be lower, but I just thought the actor did such a good job, and he turned out to be a very sympathetic character. Unlike Jesse's parents, I really think that Jane's dad cared about Jane. And even though he showed it, his caring, in the wrong ways, and he was really kind of shitty and mean, I really liked his character, and I loved the conversation between him and Walter in the bar. That's one of my favorite moments in the series history, is him and Walter just happening to meet and talk in the bar late at night. Very, very good scene. And him killing himself, to me, that was a much sadder death than Nacho, or like Jane, was him killing himself, because his wife died. That was a tragic thing for him, and then his daughter died too. And then he causes the deaths of all those other people. Like, that's just terrible and tragic. In comparison to Nacho, who, let's see, like, what happened with Nacho again? Like, who died close to Nacho? Like, nobody? That one guy that worked for Gus, I guess? Yeah, that was weak. They had this little story where Nacho wanted to protect his dad, and he asked Gus to protect him for him. And then we never get any follow-through on that. We never get any little story where Gus actually protects Nacho's father. It's just kind of a throwaway thing. And so next up is Don Eladio. I really love this character. He does such a good job acting, and he's such a likable and yet creepy villain. He's a great Don character actor. He's perfect. He fits the bill. He does his service in the show perfectly. And he never really has any bad scenes. Like, they just keep on showing him. He's basically the cameo king. I mean, they show him over and over and over and over again. He's not much of a developed character. However, he never has any really bad scenes. Next up are the Cousins. The Cousins are probably my favorite villains from Breaking Bad, honestly. If we were to just rank villains, they were more characters who, to me, they just became cameo characters where they'd show up, fanboys would be like, "Yay, Cousins!" And then that would be it. The Cousins were very, very creepy. They were very, very scary. Like when they went up against Hank and everything, like they were terrifying, and they were great villains until they became the cameo kings. Next up is the Vet. Now this is the OG Vet, the Vet from Better Call Saul seasons 1 through 6. This is a guy who's he is the most underrated character in Better Call Saul history. He is a character who, he has Jimmy's fucking criminal contact book, and we never really get any backstory for him. We never really get any great stories that involve him personally, and I find it a travesty that we don't find out how Jimmy gets his criminal book. I mean, what's the story with that? Because he didn't become Saul right when that guy quit, right when the Vet was leaving town and he was selling the book. And so how did Jimmy track down the guy who bought the book and get it from him and everything? See, there's a lot of stuff missing here. But of course, we can't overstay our welcome and show stuff that isn't quote-unquote necessary. So, the Vet, highly underrated, highly underrated. Next up is the sound guy from the film crew. He is in the A category. This guy, even though he didn't have much of a character, he was such a fantastic character without saying a lot. Like, he would just make these really funny faces, and he was perfect. I love the film crew overall. He was so great. He was so funny. Next up is, I don't know his character's name. It's Trevor from GTA 5. The guy who's in Pimento and Better Call Saul Season 1. And then Better Call Saul Season 5, Episode 6, Wexler v. Goodman. He was a very fun and cool side character. They used him only twice, and they could have used him more. But they showed restraint with his character, and I just thought he was a fun side character. Like, see, that's how you do a side character. You don't just have a side character appear again and again and again and again, like they're just, oh wow, look, it's that guy. Like, no, you just have them appear when they're necessary to appear, and that's it. Next up is Skyler White. Now, I gotta admit, Skyler White from Breaking Bad seasons 1 through 3, fuck that bitch. Okay, I don't care about the, if you don't like Skyler White, you're a sexist. Like, fuck off. Okay, Skyler White's character in Breaking Bad seasons 1 through 3 was one of the most trash characters in television history. She took you out of the fantasy world. She was a very unpleasant, unlikable character. She was annoying, obnoxious. She would do all sorts of these weird, shitty things like forcing her family to eat veggie bacon, forcing her husband to eat veggie bacon on his birthday. I mean, what a terrible person. But then in seasons 4 and 5, she makes a very, very good turnaround where she turns into like Walter's sidekick, like Walter's crime partner for life. And she's just like the perfect match for Walter. They're such a fantastic couple, and they fit so well together in the final 2 seasons. And to just see her become a part of his business and everything, I ended up really loving her character a lot. And the final scene, seeing her and Walter and the baby, and knowing, just the sad thing of knowing that really Skylar is going to be the only person in the world who likes Walter pretty much after he's gone. And Holly, she probably won't grow up to like Walter. She'll probably grow up and hate him like everyone else, but Skylar is the only one. And so after all this time wondering, did Walter make the right choice in not staying with Gretchen? Did he make the right life decisions? I think he did, because Skylar turned into a legendary wife, a legendary character. And I gotta be honest, like, I didn't care at all about her character from seasons 1 through 3, but I ended up really loving her character. And so, but still, fuck seasons 1 through 3, Skylar. That character was trash. So next up is Lyle. Lyle is a character who he was Gus's most loyal employee at Los Pollos Hermanos. He is another like meme character, but there's just something so interesting about Lyle, because he is probably the most prominent person in Gus's life, non-criminal wise. Like, in Gus's normal everyday life, when he's not doing criminal stuff, Lyle is the main person who matters most. Like, he's just this legendary employee, and so there's something really cool about that to me. Like, he's almost like the film crew to Gus. That's the equivalent. And so I really like Lyle. I think he's cool. Next up is Rebecca. She was Chuck's wife, and she is one of the Cusack sisters, and she's legendary. She was a great character, and you could really tell that she was a nice, caring person, and it was really heartbreaking to see her react to Chuck, finding out Chuck had that illness, that fake illness, and that he was mentally ill. After all those years of not knowing, there was a very cool sort of unseen romance between her and Chuck that it's too bad we didn't get to see more of. She was a great partner to Chuck, and so I ended up really liking her character a lot. Next up is QB, aka Bill Burr. This was another character who, although he wasn't shown a lot, especially since he wasn't in Better Call Saul, probably because he thought, this show sucks, they ruined it, they turned into Better Simp Kim by the end of it. He was a great, funny character, and after Breaking Bad ended, the first thing I thought to myself was like, I really hope that the actor who plays QB, I hope that he gets work after this. Like, I didn't know that he was a comedian or anything. I just thought, like, he was a great actor. And I thought, like, I really hope that guy gets work after this show. Like, he was so good, even though he had a small time on screen. Next up is Marie. Damn it, Marie! They're fucking minerals! Okay, that takes care of that. Marie, not only is she a babe, but she is Skylar if Skylar stuck to Walter from the very beginning. She was just the greatest wife to Hank. She was a dream wife to Hank, and the way that she took care of him when he got injured. She barely had any bad moments to me. I mean, she stole a couple of things, so what? I mean, they didn't even develop that anyway, so it's not like she was a lifelong felon or something. Like, that was just like a throwaway storyline. So I really liked Marie a lot. I thought she was a fantastic character. Next up is Marion. Marion from the final season, played by the great Carol Burnett. This was a very underrated character, and she was a very underused character. I was really expecting her to do something more than just look up Jimmy's name on a little plot convenience laptop so that Jimmy would have to run and get caught. I thought that she was a very sweet character, and she did such an amazing job. I mean, you talk about great acting. This acting that Carol did was better than any of the acting that Kim did the entire series. And so that's that. I'll just end it right there because that just mic drop. Next up is Huel. Huel is the most likable Chad guy. Like, everybody loves Huel. Nobody doesn't like Huel. Huel is just, oddly enough, he's like this criminal character. In real life, he probably ends up just continuing to be a criminal, whatever. He was a really decent guy, and he was a really loyal and great guy, and I really loved him in both series. God, I hope this video ends soon. God. Oh, I hope I don't have to do that interview tonight. If I do, I think I'm gonna like jump off a cliff. And okay, I should explain it now. Damn it, I shouldn't have said it. I am doing a little interview, and the person, I don't know when we will do the interview because she's very busy. She's been having a terrible time because, I won't get into that, but the interview will probably take hours and just, I am so worn out, and I'm not even finished with this list. I also should say this really quickly. I am currently working on my first movie, and I will be working with another actor soon, and she will be here in the area for like 10 days. And we will shoot all her scenes in 10 days. And so during those 10 days, I will not be uploading daily videos. I will be doing daily uploads beforehand. So the reason why you're going to start seeing Goosebumps TV episode reviews that will premiere at the end of September is because I will not be available during those days. I will be spending all those days shooting with this very lovely actress. Next up is Hector. Hector was a fantastic character. They really got to have their cake and eat it too with him, because originally they wanted him to walk around and talk, and he is a great actor. He was in just one episode of Californication, but he gave probably the greatest performance in Californication history as the main character's father, and he gave such a heartfelt performance, and he did such a great job in the show, though, both walking around and talking and being in the wheelchair, not talking or saying anything. So I love Hector's character. They went a little overboard with the Belle thing by the end of the Better Simp Kim, but other than that, fantastic character. Next up is Marco. This character I really think is underrated. I think he is the second most underrated character in the Better Call Saul universe. Because he is what Jimmy would have been if Jimmy wouldn't have become a lawyer. He is Gene Takovic. Like, the reason why it's so unbelievable that Gene turns evil in the final season is because of all those years ago when he went back to Chicago to see Marco, and Marco was still the same old, and he was miserable and in hell. And he was still doing the cons. He was just, not caring about anything except for doing these cons, and like he's living this miserable life with this horrible job that he hates. He is Jimmy if Jimmy didn't go to Albuquerque. And he is the Gretchen of Jimmy's story. He's very, very integral to Jimmy's character. And if you noticed, when Gene breaks bad, what does he do? He puts on Marco's ring. Boom. Mic drop. Next up is Gus Fring. He is a legendary villain who got ruined in Better Simp Kim. In Better Simp Kim, they turned him into the most unlikable, cold, unsympathetic character in the series' history. If it wasn't for the actor being such a perfect actor, this character would be another complete trash character. In Better Simp Kim, he went from legendary to trash. Like, he kept on treating Nacho terribly for no reason. He made all these terrible decisions. He treated Mike terribly. He was just a very shitty character by the end of Better Call Saul, to the point of where I really wanted Lalo to kill Gus. Like, I really wanted Gus to die. Like, I despise Gus now. I'll never like him again. Like, oh God, my water bottle cap dropped. He did a monologue about he took pleasure in torturing an animal. I mean, Gus is not a good person. However, he was a legendary villain. Next up is Gale. Now, Gale... I really love Gale for some reason. He was such a likable character. He was Howard if Howard was done correctly. He was consistent, and he was just a very innocent and likable person, even though he was doing these criminal things, and he was very smart just like Walter, except he didn't have the effect that Walter had on people. And to be honest, if I were Gus, I would have replaced Walter with Gale ASAP. Like, Gale is just so much superior to Walter in every way, shape, or form. And so it to me, I think the saddest death in both series is Jesse having to kill Gale. To be honest, like, that is the saddest death in the whole series for me. Next up is Mr. Acker from Season 5. This guy, he told it like it is. And he was the prime example of what I wanted to see from Better Call Saul when it became Better Simp Kim. He was a character who actually called Kim on her bullshit. And he said, you're one of those ivory tower people who only does good things to make themselves feel better when they're really bad people. Like, he totally destroyed Kim and wrecked her on every level, to the point of where she got so agitated, she went to Jimmy for help. And she, how much she hated Jimmy. And so it really pained her to have to do that. So I really thought Mr. Acker was awesome. I don't care if you guys think it's crazy that I put him this high. He's cool. Next up is Badger. Badger was pretty mixed at first. He had a couple of moments where it's like, yeah, this guy in real life, he would have acted this way. But by the end of the series, he just turned into one of the most lovable characters ever. Very good character. And at the top of the A category is Jesse Pinkman. There really isn't much to say about Jesse that hasn't already been said. He makes such a dramatic transition. An almost like impossible transition where he goes from being the most irritating yet funny character to being the most likable character on the show. To being the one that you want to see him survive. You want to see him succeed. He was supposed to get killed in season 1. And they kept him around. And it was one of the best decisions they ever made. Because his transition alongside Walter was so great to watch. He did have a couple of trash parts though. Like El Camino was pretty weak. Pretty meh after, we thought like, oh, we're getting a sequel to Breaking Bad? Oh, it's El Camino. Ugh. Fan service movie. His character, though, like, he is such a great character, and I really can't say enough good things about him, but I have to move on or else I'll die of talking. Next up in the S tier, this is top tier for me. Top tier characters. Next up is Clifford Maine. This character is another underrated character in Better Call Saul. He was such a decent person, and he was such an interesting character. To me, like the interaction between him and Jimmy when Jimmy quit is probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. Because he was really surprising the way that, we thought like, oh, maybe he's just another Howard. Maybe he's just another Chuck or another Rich. No, he was his own character, and he did make some shitty decisions as a character. Like, for some reason, he didn't like Jimmy's commercial, which just baffles me. His character was just awesome, though. He was a very likable character. He really should have gone up against Kim and Jimmy in the final season. He would have been the perfect villain for them instead of, who was Kim and Jimmy's villain? Oh yeah, it was Jimmy, because Jimmy bad, Chuck right. Next up is Nacho's father. I gotta be honest, if you didn't have Nacho's father in the show, the turn that Nacho made from being evil to being likable wouldn't have worked. Would never have worked. And so I really think that Nacho's father, he is like one of the most lovable characters in the whole show. He is just the most innocent human. He's the most kind, awesome human being ever. And just like, there's nothing bad about his character. Like, he is so likable in every way, shape, or form. And somehow Nacho ended up suffering the worst fate out of him, Jane, and Jesse. Like, even though his father was really, really good to him. Next up is Todd. Todd was a legendary villain. He was evil as hell. He was a sociopath, just like Kim. And he's such a good actor, though. Jesse Plemons, he is one of the best actors around. And I'll watch anything that he's in. He is just so good in anything that he's in. Next up is the makeup girl. I don't care. I ranked her this high. You're damn right I did. Makeup Girl was hilarious. She was one of the funniest characters. She was a loyal character to Jimmy. She loved him a lot more than Kim ever did. And her character was just always solid. And I really think that if not for Makeup Girl, that Jimmy never would have gotten to where he was. Like, seriously, like, she was that integral to his character. She really seemed like the heart of the film crew, and it seemed like there was a lot of stuff that happened in between Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad that we never even got to see with her. And I'll just go ahead and say that too, because I think that they wanted to do more with her character, and then they decided not to because it wasn't Kim. Next up is Lydia. Lydia is a goddess, even though she is the most evil, sociopathic person on the planet. She is a goddess. I mean, oh my God. Lydia is perfection. Next up is, I'm going to take a drink first. Skinny Pete! Next up is Skinny Pete. I totally just didn't take a drink to cover up the fact that I forgot Skinny Pete. I was gonna say Stinky Pete from Toy Story 2 for a second. Was that Stinky Pete from Toy Story 2? Whatever. Skinny Pete is Jesse's greatest friend. The moment when Skinny Pete gives him his little hat in El Camino is my favorite moment ever with Skinny Pete. His character is just a loyal, solid friend to Jesse. He never does anything bad to him. He is the greatest friend to ever have. And he's the greatest. Like, he is so cool, and he stands by Jesse forever. He doesn't push him to be an addict again, like with Jane and stuff like that. You know, he is just the greatest. He deserves to be higher. That's how much I like him. Ugh. Next up is Mike. Mike he was a solid character until they kind of ruined him in seasons 3 through 6 of Better Simp Kim. His character, his journey from Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad was one of the greatest journeys ever. Seeing his character go from this broken person who apparently he was a dirty cop to Gus's loyal right-hand man. What an incredible journey that was, even though we didn't get to see the actual journey. His character, the way that he defends Jesse, the relationship he develops with him, the iffy relationship with Walter that he develops, where they have this really cool back and forth, and, you know, Mike says, "No more half measures, Walter." You know, all these incredible moments. And then, of course, Mike's death was just horrible, dark, depressing, sad. It came out of nowhere. It was so shocking, and it was a legendary moment for sure. Next up is Hank. Hank, he was not a perfect human being. He was very irritating, just like Skyler. But the difference was that Hank was always a good guy. He always was on the good side, whereas Skyler was not. And he really was a great heroic character. He was a very good anti-hero. Like, where you know this character, he's not a perfect guy, but he's going to do the right thing. He wants to take down Heisenberg so badly. He obsesses for years and years and years. Everyone tells him to stop. Everyone tells him, you know, you're not going to find him. And he stays true to it, and he ends up almost defeating Heisenberg. And just the sad thing where, you know, he ends up getting killed was just horrible and sad. But still, his character was he was so awesome. Hank is he's the man. Next up is Ed the Disappearer. I think that this guy, he is another hugely underrated character in the series. And if they hadn't cared about the whole overstay or welcome bullshit, then we would have gotten a lot more of Ed, wouldn't we? So, but before he passed away. So, his character, although he was underused, he was a badass legendary character. Like, the way that he was able to make these high profile criminals just disappear right off the map, he is fucking awesome. And just how he got to that point, how he got to that place, that position, it's an awesome mystery to think about. And his character, he's like invincible. He's like a god. He's such a cool character. And pretty interesting that he sent Jimmy to Kim's home state for no reason, too. Like, that's another storyline they ruined and never developed. Next up, and now we're in the top 4. Next up is Andrea. Yeah, that's right, Andrea from Breaking Bad. Jesse Pinkman's greatest love interest, and the saddest death, or the second saddest death of Breaking Bad as a whole. She was a completely 100% good human being, unlike Jane, and she was just she was so lovable. She was definitely the most lovable person in the entirety of Breaking Bad, and she was just so cool and so good, and the epitome of a supporting character. See, like, this is where Kim could have been if Kim was actually a good character. Like, she could have been right here. But instead, they had to shove her down your throat and ruin her. And so, I really think, though, that Andrea, she will always be the greatest. Like, she is the greatest love interest. She was so supportive to Jesse. She helped him turn around his life. And, wow, she was definitely wifey material. Oh yeah, I was thinking about, like, oh my god, I didn't put her on my Babes video, but that was only Better Call Saul characters. Number 3 is Chuck McGill. Every scene Chuck was on, he did an A+ performance. Every single time he was on, you were just sitting there waiting to hear what he had to say. He is such a good actor. He could make the script to the shittiest movie on the planet sound like Shakespeare. He is the greatest. He is probably the greatest actor around, or one of the greatest actors around. And his back and forth with Jimmy, he was Jimmy, but evil. Like, the fact that he wanted Jimmy to stay Jimmy and not become Saul, and then he ends up creating Saul himself, is like this Dr. Frankenstein type of character on accident, is such an incredible storyline. And they never were able to replace Chuck. Like, that's how great of a character Chuck was. He was on Better Call Saul, and then they were never able to actually find a new character who would take his place to have these interactions with Jimmy. You know, there were all these scenes where Jimmy would talk to Chuck in the house, in the living room, and the writers were never able to find a good actor or a good thing to do to replace that. And so what they did was they replaced Chuck with Kim, and they replaced all the living room scenes with apartment scenes with Kim and Jimmy and their little shitty romance. And it didn't work. It sucked. It was balls. It was sweaty, greasy balls on the side of a Texas road with cigarette butts making the balls smoking in flames. But Chuck McGill, he is a character that is just so perfect. He is so realistic too. He's so realistic for sure. He's right up there with Breaking Bad characters in terms of like, I think he's underrated. Like when people talk about him, oh, he's just the great character from the early seasons of Better Call Saul. Like, no, he really is one of the greatest characters of both series. He is up there at the very top. Number 2 is Jimmy McGill. Jimmy McGill sucked by the end of Better Simp Kim when he turned into the biggest simp in the universe. They had this stupid ass shit where he was going to murder an old lady. Like really bad writing. Really, really bad writing that they did in the final season of Better Simp Kim. But before the final season of Better Simp Kim, Jimmy was just, he's the greatest. Like, you know what? Nah, actually I can't do that because of them ruining him. Like, I would put him at number 1, but since they ruined him, made him throw his life away for Kim, I can't put him at number 1 because that would just, it would not be right because they never did anything like that with Walter, like where Walter, his character got ruined and forever I'll just call him the simp Walter. No, never, ever, ever. Jimmy McGill, he started off in Breaking Bad. He started off as a legendary side character in Saul Goodman. And he was badass. He solved every problem that ever existed for Walter. And he was the best character of Breaking Bad for sure. At the end of Breaking Bad, I didn't really care what happened to Walter so much as I cared about what happened to Jimmy. And then they managed to create basically a whole new character in Jimmy McGill. So you had Saul, then you had Jimmy McGill. Jimmy was an everyman. Not only that, he had this terrible older brother named Chuck who turned him into Saul. And you could really sympathize with his character. He had this fantastic journey where he got labeled as a sex offender. He got forced to move to Albuquerque to become this lawyer, or to work for his brother, I mean. And then he built himself up as a lawyer. He was a badass hero. He helped everyone. He would help the people that Kim wouldn't help. He would help the people who, that Kim would think like, I don't want to help that guy. Yeah. Like, Jimmy was the true hero of Better Call Saul, of course, because that's who the show was supposed to have been about. And then they also created Gene Takovic. And at first, Gene Takovic seemed like another fantastic character until they ruined that. So Jimmy McGill, some of the greatest acting ever that I've ever seen. The scene with him crying in the insurance office, fake crying, fantastic. Number 1 is Walter White. I'm sure this comes as no surprise because Breaking Bad was rigged for you to like Walter. Like, yeah, he's the main fucking character, dipshit. Like, no shit, I'm gonna like him over everyone else. Wow. Like, and that's the funny thing that you see here, is that both main characters of both shows are at the top spots. Like, wow, I wonder why. Because they're the ones with the most character. They're the ones with the most character growth, the most development. They're the most likable characters. And here's the thing. Without Walter, you wouldn't have Better Call Saul. Without Walter, you wouldn't have Breaking Bad. You think that Breaking Bad could have starred Skyler? You think Breaking Bad could have starred Walter Jr.? You think Breaking Bad could have worked if it was just about Jesse? You think Breaking Bad could have worked if it was about Marie, or Hank, or Tuco, or Gus? No. The reason why Breaking Bad was good was because it was about Walter White Heisenberg. A character, an everyman, a character who got screwed over, who was this very intelligent person who ended up becoming a shitty teacher at a shitty school in New Mexico with his shitty wife and his shitty son. He had shit, and then he had more shit when he got lung cancer. And he's like, I'm not going to just sit here and die. I'm going to go become a badass. I'm going to go do something that a lot of people wouldn't do. I'm going to go do something and become a legend and become an icon. I am going to leave a footprint in history, and I am going to do it in whatever way possible. And sure, he was a narcissist and he was very, very evil in certain ways, but who cares? He was extremely sympathetic. I always cared about what happened to Walter. Always. Every single moment of every single episode, I cared about what happened to Walter. At the smallest moments of the show, like just the simplest, smallest things, like where Walter, when he gets pulled over by the cop because he has a broken windshield, I cared about what happened to Walter because he was a perfect character, and because it was Bryan Cranston playing him, and nobody else could have played this character. He was the perfect character. Modern TV wouldn't be modern TV without Heisenberg, Walter White. So no, after all these years, I don't hate Walter White now. I love Walter White even more. Do you know why? Because now that we have all this perspective over the years, we can go back and we can look at Walter from a completely new perspective. And then we can look at him from another perspective in El Camino. We can look at him from all sorts of different angles. It's so interesting to think about, like, just what does Walter look like to every single character in the whole series? Because he everyone in the universe knows about Walter White. Everyone in the universe knows about Heisenberg. Not everyone in the universe knows about Kim Wexler. Okay, Heisenberg, he is the greatest character in modern TV history, probably. He is a legend. He is an icon. And he is a figure of awesomeness. And even though Vince Gilligan had a midlife crisis and he hates Walter now for no reason, it will never stop me from loving Walter White. So that's it. Please like, subscribe, comment. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.